I like things that end. Big fan. Big fan of things that end.
Big fan of endings.
It's like, because that's the... And listen, I understand. I'm a hypocritical bastard. Because I like the Western equivalent of this, which is American comic books, which never end ever, and they refuse to stop. Here's the thing, though. Try as I might, I have heard nothing but wonderful things about some of the new comics that are coming out now. It appears that the Dark Ages are over. Guys, we got good X-Men books coming out again. We got a good Wolverine book. The Absolute DC line, people are really digging. There's a part of me, I cannot be bothered. I'm like, guys, there is so much I already got on my shelf that I haven't read. And also, it's just like, I just don't know. It's like, I kind of like it when stuff stops. And when somebody says to me, but dude, there's a brand new villain for Batman to fight, and it's the best, and it's the biggest villain, and it's like nothing he's ever faced before. I'm like, that's a no.
It's
that's
like Harley
not true.
Quinn, but she's an e-girl. Yeah, that's a thing.
It's strange because I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of exhausted with the merry-go-round. And even some character, like there are some characters I kind of like, my ears kind of perk up a little bit because I am one of both Justice Society of America fans in the world. It's just me and Jeff Johns. It's literally only us.
You're not wrong.
It's me, Jeff Johns, and Roy Thomas, who two of these people spent most of their life writing them. So when a new JSA book comes out, I'm like,
you don't say.
And even then, there is a part of, it's like I peer over the garden wall and I'm like, is it good? And they're like, no. And I'm like, damn it.
That's the way of things. I appreciate endings too. I have stepped away from comic books, like super American comic books and stuff, for a very long time at this point. I have too many collections, I have too many hobbies, too many interests, and that was the one that I looked at and said, I like money, to quote Mr. Krause, and I decided I would like more of it. And the way I'm going to secure that is to stop buying comics. I still love the medium. I think it's a really fertile ecosystem for creativity. I think there's a lot of authors flocking to the medium because of what it offers. It's like low production cost. It's collaborative, and also you just have all these lost toys and that need destinies or could have renewed value. All it takes is somebody to take a clever idea, have a friend who's an artist, and go, you're off to the races. You brought everybody back to whoever the fuck, Human Target or whatever. I know that was kind of a big deal in the past few years. But yeah, I like endings too. Like I enjoyed reading Garth Ennis's Punisher, but part of what I love about it is that Garth Ennis stopped writing the Punisher, and we have that. It stops. Also, like if we're talking comics, one comic that I would come out of retirement to read is Scott Snyder's Batman from the New 52 era. I really enjoyed what I read of that. I got to the Joker arc. I think there's two of them though. I think I got to the second Joker arc. So I got to where it transitions into Super Heavy, which, spoilers, I believe is when Jim Gordon takes over as Batman. But that's where I stopped. But that's actually like a run on a character that I would think of as like a complete thought that is very high on my list of things that I would actually like to conclude. I'd actually like to wrap that up.
Yeah. It's what I think what's driven me, guys, we're done talking about Keita Amemiya. Like we're talking about American comics now. But here's what drove me to continue buying single issues was I loved my local comic book shop in Maryland. I loved my shop. And any of you people in the Maryland and DC area, Universal Comics over there in Arbutus, Maryland, go in, say hi, tell them I sent you. It's a wonderful shop, and I pretty much continued to buy books because I loved them. And I would still read them. But at this point in time, I'm like, I don't really want to buy single issues anymore. I don't want to buy new single issues because they're all written for the trade anyway.
Yeah.
And I remember when I first started collecting comics as a wee lad, when I was a wee lad, I was like, I want to know what each of these are worth, and I want to price them out, and I want to be like consistent. I had a spreadsheet.
Fuck.
And like these days, I'm like, I can't be bothered, man. I'm like, I just don't care. I don't care what they're worth. It's like, I'll still buy vintage. I still have my collections. I still have stuff when I see it. I'm like, oh baby, like we got to round that out. And there are some that I know odds are I will never complete them, but I can keep trying. The Brave and the Bold is one of my favorite series just because it is so wildly varied. But there are a handful of those titles that it's like, oh boy, that's a spendy one. One of which is First Justice League. First Justice League is a Brave and the Bold. So it's like First Teen Titans is also a Brave and the Bold, but I actually managed to snag that one for a very good price.
Nice.
But it's like, so there are some collections that I will continue to go in, and I still love comics. I still love reading comics. And it's like the vintage stuff, I'll get onesie, twosie back issues. And then there's some stuff that has just never been collected that I know that I'm going to have to hold on. I'm going to have to hold on to these because it's never going to be collected. But yeah, for the most part, like the newer single issue floppies, I'm like, guys, I don't have any room for more box. There ain't any more room for it. I can't do that. And besides, if it's all written for the trade anyway, I'm just gonna wait for the trade. Because the only reason to buy the individual issues at this point is if you want to follow up week by week. You wanna know what's gonna happen. Or you're collecting for value, and you're playing the slot machine to try and be like, what's gonna be worth it? What's it gonna be? And I'm just
like the
over
90s
it.
all over again.
Yeah, I'm just over it, man. It's like comic book movies are largely dead. It doesn't matter if Red Tornado is going to be appearing in the next DC movie. It doesn't matter if we're finally going to get the Kree in a real way in Marvel, in a way that people don't hate. Guys, nobody cares. It's over. It's over. It's like the days of somebody getting announced for a movie and its first appearance shooting up. Guys, it's over. Stop it. Can we please get back to collecting and actually reading the books that we collect instead of just chasing keys because they announced a movie?
Yeah. Could not have said it better myself. Something that I'll contribute though is I've often said that like how we humans process we process the world through narrative, I think we have as a species, I think we have a very strong hunger for narrative, for story. It's like how we have a tendency to try to bring order and sense to things, even when there is none to be found. Like try to transpose meaning onto things that may or may not actually have it in the cosmic scheme of things. And to bring it back to you, Levi, with your Captain Speaking YouTube channel, you talk about men's fiction, and part of how you advertise the material that you're covering in your videos, like video essays essentially that you do for that channel. Part of the presentation of it, part of the selling point is that a lot of these stories tend to be relatively short, tend to be like 150 pages, 200 pages, something that can be comfortably knocked out in a day, kind of like a movie or something. I think that's like part of my aversion to like the franchise media landscape, and by extension comics stuff, is that it's a business and it's a format that we've kind of all been trained into. Like there's a lot of muscle memory built up to have certain expectations with how things flow and stuff, where we're not telling stories anymore. We're pushing engagement, and everything is told in slivers now. So it's like, I remember when I was a wee lad reading my earliest superhero comics, those floppies were stories. I would pick up. I was a little kid. I didn't know anything about how comics. I didn't know anything about formatting. I didn't even know what a trade paperback was. I never had even been exposed to the format. I would just be given a floppy by like my dad, or my brother would like be getting rid of one and say, "Hey, you want this?" And then I would open it and I would read it, and it was like a story. It was a self-contained thing that like it wasn't a promise of what's to come. It wasn't incentivizing me to buy more. It was just like, here's an 18-page story or whatever, and that is a Batman adventure, and that's all you need. And I miss that format. I miss that. I miss the self-contained nature of things, because it seems like I mentioned this when I was rambling about Garo. It feels like it feels like crabs all the way down, where it's like media trends in that direction. If we can franchise it, if we can make it a big thing that instills guilt in people or incentivizes them to continue their engagement with the property, as opposed to just like buying a ticket to a single movie. It's like, why ask them to buy a ticket to one movie when we can ask them to tune into a weekly television show and go to see a movie and play a video game and all these other things? It from a business standpoint, it's just like all things lead to that eventually, and it's disheartening. Like, why can't we just tell stories? I like stories.
It's one of the things that I got a stack of comics for like nothing, for like a couple bucks. Yeah. And this was a little bit ago. All coverless. So they were so the thing is that they were more than likely sold off. They were sold off as returned.
Yeah.
So the idea is that if you rip off the cover of something, it can't be returned to the publisher. So it was more than likely that is what was done. Is that these were donated probably to somewhere, and they tore off the covers so that it couldn't be used to recoup costs.
I've seen that at libraries before.
Yeah, it's not uncommon, and it was very, very common for comic books. So the value of those books, kaput. There is no value to these books as like a collectible commodity. They live in my bathroom. And let me tell you, you sit down for a stint on the John, and you crack open one of those, and odds are you can knock out one of those backup stories in one sit. And it's like, well, wasn't that pleasant? Wasn't that good? Sergeant Rock shot some Nazis. End of story. on with my day. There's something to that. There's something to the self-contained, and it's like it was one of those. It honestly feels like a bit of a lost art because we used to be so efficient, so doggone efficient in our storytelling, and they could be affecting and neat and still like kind of hit you a little bit. And it's what made those annual issues or those big anniversary issues so special. Probably one of the single best, like, in my mind, there are like 2 one-issue complete story tales that come to mind. As far as one that I'm just like, anyone would get a kick out of this, it's a Batman dollar special where he fights his mirror opposite called The Wrath.
Okay.
The Wrath is a character whose parents were killed the same night Bruce Wayne's parents were, but they were petty criminals and they were shot by Jim Gordon.
Whoa!
So like the story is like told in parallel. The opening pages are like, Bruce Wayne lifts up a test tube, like in that classic, like, learning chemistry and the sciences. He's lifting up a test tube in his shot, and in the mirrored panel is this kid holding up a switchblade. And it's like, so we have these like parallel realities of we have one man as a knight for justice and another as a knight for injustice. And what's so perfect about it is the silhouette is the same. Okay. So if you look at them side by side, it's because the Wrath has a W that goes down his face.
Oh no. Jeez.
It is amazing. It is, and it's a single issue. Perfect. It is so dumb. And I love it so much.
That's the charm of those comics, is that it's kind of a relative. It's a high energy, low stakes environment, kind of. It's like we got editors, you got deadlines and stuff. It's just crank it out. It's like we're making these things without the promise that it'll mean anything. Honestly, we're making things. We're telling stories, and somebody was like. It's like the death of Superman or whatever, where they have their editor retreat or whatever, and every single time the one guy's like, kill him, let's kill him. And every single time they're like, no, that's a dumb idea. And then eventually they're all out of ideas, and that guy every year says, let's kill him. And they're like, sure, let's give it a let's try killing Superman just to try it.
just to give it a whirl.
Yeah, let's try it on.
The other one is Justice League 200, which was a big anniversary issue. Beautiful wraparound cover, complete story, a fairly complex story too. Like, it is just such a big, like, globe-trotting, like, the whole, it's the classic, like, we have to split up into teams. So, like, Batman and Green Lantern have to go to this corner of the globe, and Superman and the Flash have to go to this corner of the globe. Like, it's one of those types of stories. And it plays on the team's history, and it's, like, one issue. Yeah. And it is so efficient. And it's so well told, and the art's fun, and it's kinetic, and we used to know how to tell these stories in a way that was satisfying and complete, but just never got bogged down. And it's what made something like the multi-issue stories, like 10 Nights of the Beast was one of the first Batman stories that had was specifically like 4 parts.
Yeah.
And KG we need all 4 parts. Yes. The KG Beast is one of those Batman villains I want back. I want him. I want him to be in things because he's so cool.
My brother and I, we did a podcast that may exist on YouTube somewhere. This is like 10 years ago. But my brother, Matt, and Kyle, we did a podcast talking about like comic book characters that we would like to see represented in film. And KG Beast was, or like comic stories actually that we'd like to see done on film. And KG Beast was my pitch. I know technically he's in Batman v Superman, but they never say his name. He is not that character. He's just in the credits is named after him and is portrayed as Russian. Anyway,
yeah,
I'm sorry to derail you.
No, it's fine. But it's just we had an ability that we don't seem to have anymore. We had this ability with television, we had this ability with comic books, we had this ability with movies, and we seem to have willfully lost that ability.
Yeah, it's again, I think it's an incentive structure where it's the people who own the rights to a lot of these stories. It's crabbed all the way down. They just know that there is a format that that is most viable from a business standpoint, and so it affects the writing of the thing. It affects the structuring of the thing because it's wrestling. Why blow your wad at the local show in Peoria or whatever when WrestleMania is next week? Like, no, take it easy. Like, hold something back. Incentivize people to pay the elevated ticket price for at the elevated platform of WrestleMania. It's the equivalent of like Save for the Trade or something, but it does feel like a lost skill because this is often said ad nauseum about storytelling and media in general is limitations sometimes create better work. And those earlier writers of comics had those limitations imposed on them where it's like you have X number of pages, you have X number of days to get them done. Maybe you even have X number of panels. Hell, you had X number of colors for most of those things. You had all these limitations imposed on you to the point that you had to be economical and you had to be concise with your storytelling. You only had so many words, you had only so many images you could make use of. These days, the incentive structure is based around not telling a singular cohesive thought within 18 pages or whatever. It's concluding that half thought with a promise of more and getting to the next issue and so on and so forth. It's like an example funny. You mentioned to me last week, I think off air, that you've been rewatching Seinfeld or working your way through Seinfeld. The writing of Seinfeld and especially Curb Your Enthusiasm, both Larry David, is a very good example of what I think is like very, very good writing, very well structured writing. Because what those shows have in common is that a lot of times there's carryover of characters and gags from certain episodes into different episodes and even seasons down the line or something. None of it's really essential to enjoying the product. But within a singular episode, there's a rhythm and a flow to it where usually it's basically like joke or storytelling. Like, it's a very basic storytelling, but it feels like a magic trick by today's standards, where it's like you introduce something and then you wrap things up with a renewed reference to the thing that you started off with that felt superfluous or innocuous, and it gains meaning by it being reiterated in the closing chapter of the story. It's self-contained.
Well, and that's
it's very effective.
Yeah, it's like, it is strange because, like you said, it feels like a magic trick. It feels very... It's something that should be so simple.
Well,
it's something that should be so simple.
Think about how you and I talk to each other. Like, not like just telling a story from your own life, not even something you've written down. There's a way of circling back and shedding new light on things that were said earlier that it just feels correct. Like that's how we work things out. Like, we don't just make mouth noises at each other and then say, okay, see ya. It's not like that. There's a reason we're trading information back and forth. We are finding meaning as we go.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is that it's I feel like a very instrumental part I have no idea how you're going to brand this episode. It's just a thought that came to my mind. I'm like, what are we even going to call this one? Anyways, I think an instrumental part of developing as a artist or just as a person in social situations is understanding how to tell a good story and how to do so concisely and with enough like emphasis on certain details and like not as much emphasis on other details. Where do you speed it up? Where do you slow it down? Where do you like, because we all know the friend that they tell you about their day and it's just nothing but superfluous details. And you're like, where, like, come on, dude. Like, they tell you, instead of saying they went to 8 stores to get something, they tell you about each store, each time, and each interaction they had. And then and you're like, dude, 8 stores said the same thing. Compress. What occurred to you? Tell me information. Like, it's one of the things that occurs to people. It's one of the things that it's like, I feel like in social standings, if you have any inclination towards art, you start to learn when to bend and how to wrap things up and where irony comes in and where can we compress and when do we elongate. And it makes us more effective storytellers. And it feels like an instinct that seems to be going by the wayside.
This is something I've observed. It's superliminal storytelling, Levi. So you have subliminal, liminal, and superliminal. So it's Simpsons reference. I'm not sure. Have you gotten there yet in The Simpsons?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. In the words of LT Smash, one episode character, join the Navy is the punchline to the joke. So he's explaining advertising, explaining this to, I believe, Lisa Simpson. He says there are 3 kinds of advertising. There's subliminal, liminal, and superliminal. And she says, what is superliminal? And he opens a window and he yells out to, I think it's Lenny on the sidewalk. He says, "Hey, you, join the Navy." And he says, "Okay." So we've entered the age of superliminal writing, where I've noticed this, where I'll like walk into the room, or I'll just be on the couch, and I'll be watching something with my fiance, and I'll look up and I'll be like, boy, they're really telling me how they feel right now. Or
yeah.
It's like, basically it's just like all the things that in daily life, so much community. I mean, especially like me growing up within my household and stuff, like quite a lot of communication happens without words. There's quite a lot of things that you just understand or you pick up on just based on nonverbal cues or the foundation of knowledge you have about that person. And in writing and in storytelling, I think there's by contemporary terms, I think there's a fear of being misunderstood, or a fear that audiences won't be smart enough or quick enough to figure out what it is you're trying to convey.
If I was to use a buzzword to describe this, it just isn't second screen enough, Trevor. Because I'm looking at Instagram, how am I supposed to know this character is angry? Because I'm not looking at their face. It is, and listen, I get it. It's a buzzword. In some ways, I'm like, and many things are like this for me right now, is that in years past, I was like, come on, guys, like, people aren't that dumb. Like, surely this is like, you're saying things that don't quite make sense, and I feel like that's very reductive toward the audience and toward artists. These days I'm like, yeah, I think they might actually be writing for people on their phones. Well, why? Well, because they went in front of rolling TV cameras and said it. And it's one of the things that struck me. We talked about Sinners on a previous podcast. It's one of the things that struck me about Sinners as a concept and as in its writing in some places, especially in that second half. People start describing things that you should kind of know and that don't really make any sense. I'm like, guys, so you're telling me that this is a movie written for adults for adult people, and like you don't know what the Klan is? You're explaining what the Klan is to the audience? You're explaining the rules of vampires to the audience? This is a movie for adults, right? Like, I could ask literally anybody in the world what vampires are. And like, I could ask any person who has some sort of cultural knowledge at all in America what a vampire is. What are a vampire's weaknesses? What are a vampire's weaknesses? What can it do? What can it not do? It feels like there are times and it's so strange for that second half, where the brain just falls out of the doggone movie. And it becomes a matter of explaining things over and over again. And they start explaining rules that they explained earlier a second and a third time. And you're like, what is going on here? And you realize that it's like, oh yeah, they're counting on this being on streaming services. And they're counting on the fact that I have Instagram reels going at the same time. So I missed that plot point.
I think you're right, Levi, and I think there's something else at work too, where I feel like the online environment these days, not so much in person, I think, but maybe, I guess. I think there's a fear of being wrong. I think there's a fear of being misunderstood, and it's funny because in all these years of podcasting and reviewing movies and stuff, one of my favorite things to do is to take the material for a walk. Kyle, I'm sure, was always rolling his eyes when I would do that, but basically we would watch a movie or something, and the specific meaning behind something or the concept or the theming that was at work, like subtext or something, seemed to be apparent but was never explicitly stated or laid out, and so it gives me wiggle room to just kind of have my way with it and have some fun. And I love that. To me, that is art in a lot of respects. It's it is, I am reacting to the thing. I feel like I should be entitled to my own personal interpretation or reaction, even if it's incorrect in the eyes of the person who breathed life into the thing. I'm sure they'd get a chuckle out of hearing how wrong I am from their perspective. Doesn't mean I can't have my perspective, but I think there's a fear of being misunderstood, fear of being wrong, a fear of going against, pushing against the tide. Where it's imagine you're a middle school kid who's saying, oh yeah, I saw Sinners, I really loved it. It meant this and this and this to me. And then all your friends are like, no, you fucking idiot, it didn't mean that. All that you missed all that subtext? Gall, you're such a dumbass. I think there's a desire for homogeneity among people's interpretation of certain works of art, where it's having the placard next to the piece, next to the painting in the movie, where it's sometimes I read the placard. I love walking through a museum and taking in all the sights and stuff. I'll read the placard, but not until I've looked at the thing. Not until I've decided how I reacted and what I felt. And then I'll read the thing and I'll say, oh, hey, that's neat. Doesn't mean I discard what I felt. It just means I add to that. I add the creator's perspective in. And I do think that people, there's a fear of not having the notes, not having the placard.
Yeah. And And I agree with that 100%. It's something that I do genuinely walk into a film and I say, what is the artist trying to tell me? What am I supposed to learn? What am I supposed to gather from this? Like, even if it's not, here's the moral of the story, there is a part of me that does say, like, well, what is the artist trying to put out into the world? What is the artist saying in this? Because what is the movie about? And I find, and some people find that line of argumentation really annoying. Like, yeah, don't think about that too hard. Whatever, dude. You know, it's not that deep. Like, and I'm like, I get it, but at the same time, there are different folds to this. There is artist intent, there is audience interpretation, and then there is also general cultural impact. What does it bring to the culture? And these are often three separate answers, and all three are technically valid. It depends on which one that you want to hitch your wagon to. And it's not even death of the author's ridiculous. I think it's stupid.
No.
I think that an author's intent absolutely needs to be taken into account. But that being said, I don't think it has to shape your view of the piece. I like being able to sit down and say, what is the author intending? And there are times where I'm like, where I walk away with an interpretation and I'm like, I hope the author isn't intending this. I hope the author doesn't mean that, the thing that I'm reading here. I don't think that's quite right. It's like Sinners was another one that I'm like, I get what you're saying, but I think the implication of what you're saying is a little strange. Like, yeah, where it's this idea of the literal demons from hell are somehow better than racism? It's like, that's weird. Okay, like, we can show the literal blood-sucking monsters that strip your will from you and present freedom through the art of giving up giving up your will to the bowels of hell as a path to freedom. Those guys are not as bad as the Klan? I mean, okay, that is a take, guys. I'll accept it. I'm not here to defend the Klan. I don't think they're very nice people. I don't think they're very controversial take. We're dropping hot takes here on the Moon Over Tao episode.
The Klan, not nice people.
Yeah, confirmed bad person. It's like, that's the thing. But at the same time, it's like what the movie is putting forward. I'm like, that is an interpretation of what you've given. I think it's questionable. I think it's a little strange, but okay. But I feel like it's valuable to keep those three things in mind. It's like, what is the artist intending? What is your read, and how does it impact the culture? And yeah, it does seem to be a bit of a lost art, especially when people they're like, the symbolism, and I'm like, guys, these aren't undertones, these are overtones. I believe we have lost undertones. I don't think undertones exist anymore. It's like, I remember like Ahsoka came out, and you have that episode of them being in a dream and Anakin's there, and it's just like, people were like, this is just such a mind-blowing it's just so incredible. And it's just like, he flashes between being Anakin and Darth Vader. That's guys, like, I think some of the ideas put forward there are at least kind of interesting. Like, Frankie was talking about how they kind of build Anakin's character as, give your pain and your problems to me. Like, I'll take them. I take them and I hold them. And as long as I can control it, then it can't hurt me and it can't hurt you. And it's like, that is an interesting way. That's an interesting development for this character. But I feel like nobody actually talked about that. And they were only talking about the big showy things and then talking about like the symbolism. And I'm like, guys, it's all overtones. It's all overtones. It's not subtext, it's text. Mm-hmm. There's no interpretation here.
Yeah, superliminal filmmaking. Superliminal storytelling. Unfortunately, I gotta wrap things up. I got some obligations today. But I will just throw out there that like, film is a particularly interesting representation of this phenomenon that Levi and I are talking about, where it's because it is a collaborative process and it does have conflict and push and pull within itself. So there's, the singular artist's intent, like the director or the writer or whatever. But then you have the strain of actual production involved. You have producers and you have distributors, and everybody has influence on what the thing ultimately will be and what it will ultimately represent, which sometimes ends up with muddled messaging, or in the case of, say, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, a horror story with a lot of explicit gay overtones that the director had no idea he was conveying via the shots.
That's two. That's Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Yes, it is. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, infamously, the author, the writer of the script, he knew what he was doing. He said so publicly. Director to this very day may have passed on by now, but in more contemporary interviews, it's just been like, oh, I had no idea. like, I just shot that fucker. That's it. Anyway, just figured I'd conclude on that anecdote. But thank you for joining me in this bizarre chimera of a podcast. I don't know what the fuck this is going to be when it gets published, Levi, but thank you for bearing with me. This was a weird one. But before we go, would you let the audience know where they can find you and your very awesome YouTube channel?
We talked about it a little bit earlier. Over on my channel, Your Captain Speaking, we talk mostly books, short, what I dub men's action books. 200 pages or less. They are made to be exciting and fun and punchy, and they're like, there's meat on the bone. It's not all fluff. There's actual like good character work and everything else. Some of it is just there for a good time. Some of it actually has something to say. I mean, it's all worth your time. We talk about characters like Conan and Bond, detective characters like Philip Marlowe, Zorro. We got to highlight the Zorro episode. And yeah, I think they're pretty good, and people seem to be responding to them, and I would like people to read more because I think it's important and I think it keeps you sharp.
I agree. And yeah, the people come out for Zorro.
The people come out for Zorro.
Yeah, definitely check out Levi's YouTube channel, Your Captain Speaking. He does amazing work there. Such passion on display every single project. As for myself, the podcast is called Catching Up on Cinema. Levi's been on it pretty consistently for the past couple of months. So if you like listening to Levi and I talk, it seems like you're going to be getting a lot of it. But that being said, we're also on YouTube. We also do a live stream monthly called Tales from the Shelf, where you may have noticed I have a shit ton of DVDs and Blu-rays and stuff behind me. It serves as my platform to share the stories as to why those are there. Like every acquisition has a story, even if it's as dumb as like, oh, I went to a flea market and I saw it and I just took a chance or something. There's always a reason why we have the things that we have. So expect that within the next week or so. But that being said, thank you so much for listening and or watching. We will catch you next time. Bye.
That is